Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Report podcast. We are going to get into the latest with the Chicago Bears head coaching search as another week rolls on. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, someone who's covered the Bears for a long time, podcast, writing, video work. You've seen him on social media. A good reporter, an even better person, Nicholas Moreano. How you doing, man?
Doing great, Zach. Appreciate that, man. Always good to talk with this coaching search. It seems like it's going on forever, so I'm glad to talk about it with you.
Yeah, no, I thought, with this podcast and this coaching search, I'm like, I want to get guys on who are around the team, who are around Hellas Hall, kind of get their opinions on what's going on. And we've done some podcasts in the past, going back to, the Bears brothers, Chicago
Yeah.
Audible, the good old days, right? Like, when there wasn't a care in the world and everyone was just kind of having fun. But I wanted you on because I think this is a very interesting process. And I think no matter what, in my opinion, no matter what, the Bears were going to get slammed. If they interviewed 3 people,
hmm
people are going to complain. If they interviewed 20 people, people are going to complain. I think, in my opinion, as long as they get the right guy, it's going to work out. And that's kind of a cliche answer. But looking at this with there's going to be about 21 names or close to that after Mike McCarthy interviews today.
hmm
I believe it's 12 completed interviews when he
Yep.
interviews. What's kind of your overall thought on this so far here, about 10 days in?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I completely agree with you. If they did not enough, they would be, ridiculed for it. And now that 2021, it's also you're seeing the same exact kind of reaction to it. But I just look at it as this. This is such an important job and such a important position for the Bears organization at this point when you have a guy like Caleb Williams that for me, them interviewing all these candidates, I think they're just doing their due diligence. And I know a lot of these guys come from completely different backgrounds, college, former head coaches, offensive assistants, defensive assistants. I get that. But to me, if you're the Bears, you're information gathering, maybe you have a set of guys like you want them to interview, you already kind of have your finalists, but you can't hire them right now. You can almost like you can obviously have a good feeling about them once the process kind of continues, but for me, as they're like interviewing some of these candidates, like I'm looking at it like, yeah, he's interviewing. Does a guy like Arthur Smith, who interviewed today, really have a potential chance to be the next Bears head coach? I don't think so. So I'm not too harsh on the whole process of getting everybody and their grandmother into Hallis Hall or virtually to interview for this position.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, Ryan Poles told us this, and I know he got a lot of, flack for the press conference and everything that he did to end the season. But they said they're gonna turn over every stone. They're gonna interview a lot of
Mhm.
people. There's gonna be college names, there's gonna be pro names, former head coaches. He wasn't wrong, he wasn't lying. Like, as much criticism as he deserves, like, he was on point with that. And you're right. I don't think Arthur Smith's gonna get the job. I don't think David Shaw is going to be a finalist. Marcus Freeman and Matt Campbell kind of seem like, let's just do our due diligence with the college
Yeah.
level. It's a little tougher to go college to NFL. I still think it comes down to 5 or 6 names. That's kind of just my thing at the end. And it's probably the usual names of Ben Johnson, Mike McCarthy, Todd Monken, Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn, kind
hmm
of guys like that. But this process, like you said, it's going to take a little bit. If they want Ben Johnson, they have to wait. So,
hmm
good points there. And I guess, my next thing for you, when looking at this process, has there been anything that's like stood out to you, maybe in terms of like the names on the list, or were there any like big surprises that you consider legit? Because Marcus Freeman feels like the Bears want him, but why would he leave Notre Dame? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Seeing that guy, seeing Marcus Freeman pop up, that was a bit of a surprise, but I understand it. Like, if you're looking for somebody, let's just take Notre Dame's 2024 season, for example. When you lose to NIU, right?
Yep.
That could be like a pivotal moment where maybe the season just doesn't go the way you want it to. Very similar to what the Bears experienced in Washington on the Fail Mary there. But you
100%.
can almost talk to Marcus Freeman like, how did from that moment you take your program to continue on the right track? Like just even getting some information like that from a guy that is now going to be playing in the national championship. So you see a
Yep.
name of his caliber, it is intriguing. But like you, why would you leave that program? Already getting the contract extension, all those things. Like it just doesn't seem like the likely thing for a guy like Marcus Freeman to do. As I was also kind of looking at this list, and again, it does grow almost like every single
day.
day.
We're probably going to add someone as we're recording, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, like if it wouldn't surprise me, I do have Twitter open up over here just
right.
in
I
case
got
you're
on my
seeing it.
phone.
I don't like the name Pete Carroll. It's not surprising just because of who Pete Carroll is, but given his age and maybe where he's at in his career, like it is an enticing person for me as I look at it and how he could maybe benefit this Bears team, because anybody you talk to that's associated with Pete Carroll, they know what he can do to a program to, one, set the culture, make sure that people or the players are not only having fun while they're in this organization with him, but are also doing the right things to, put a proven track record on there and just make the program what you want it to be. So it is enticing, but being at the age that he is, it's like you would need to have a succession plan after that, or if you were to potentially bring a guy like Pete Carroll in. So, and I know like that name, just if you put it on Twitter, I don't know. I've seen some positivity associated with him, but then it's like, dude, he's 73, going to be 74 by September. Like, what are you really doing there? So it is interesting, but I think the most polarizing guy right now is Mike McCarthy.
Yes, 100%. I mean, like you said, that's another name on Twitter. You go on, and I feel like we're at a stage where a lot of Bears fans don't want that. I think there's valid reasons. I think people see it and they see Dallas's failures and say, okay, look what's happened. At the same time, though, that how Dallas runs the organization, we talk about the Bears being, kind of behind. Dallas is a clown show with Jerry Jones. Like he controls everything. So I can't put the full blame on Mike McCarthy. But yeah, or people are talking themselves into Mike McCarthy. For me, with Mike McCarthy, I think you are a 9 to 10 win team, 11, maybe you'll get 12, but I think the playoff ceiling is low. And I think, you're going to have a good season. You're probably going to get there. He's going to be motivated to beat the Packers. He knows what it's like to play in the NFC North. He's familiar with the organizations. For me, he's not the worst candidate. He'd probably be, among the names right up there just because of what we've heard and he's having the interview. He's also someone that doesn't get me excited for the future beyond, a couple years. Like, are we going to be doing this again in 4 or 5 years? I don't know. What's kind of your take on that?
I mean, I'm right there with you. I think the word that's been thrown around with him, and, I was just watching a clip from Colin Cowherd and Danny Park, like safe. Does Mike McCarthy feel like a safe pick? In a way, like I could see exactly why that word gets associated with him. For a lot of what you just said, he's probably going to get you the wins in the regular season, which is something that the Bears haven't done. So that's already a positive. But when it comes to postseason play, his teams have disappointed. Just go back to last year's playoff performance against the Green Bay Packers in Dallas, getting whooped.
Awful.
It wasn't even a competition. And then you hear what Caleb Williams also wants in a head coach. And one of the things, I mean, like time management, right? Like how you handle those issues or handle those moments. That's been something you can go back to even to last year with Mike McCarthy in the game against the Detroit Lions, where Dallas ends up winning because Detroit goes for a 2-point conversion. And they fail on it. But that whole situation, the Cowboys could have milked the clock there, potentially won the game, put a lot less time on the clock for Detroit to potentially, have on offense, but it didn't happen that way. And that goes all the way back still to Mike McCarthy's Green Bay days. So it's like, but we also heard like how much impact is Caleb Williams really going to have in this process? Not much, I would assume.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to factor those in there as you're kind of seeing what are the positives and negatives for each candidate. And again, that's why Mike McCarthy is a very polarizing figure. He was very good with the turnover margin when he was with Green Bay. That's why they were very successful. You have a guy like Aaron Rodgers. You were dominant against the NFC North. We just said the regular season wins, but isn't the ultimate goal every single season to be competing or winning a championship?
Yes.
And that's where he falls short, only having the one. It's still one championship is still a lot better than what the Bears have done definitely recently here with the organization.
Yeah, I mean, just 0 playoff wins since 2010 the season. It's been bad. And the clock management you pointed out, and you're referencing the St. Brown's podcast. You've watched it, right?
Yes.
Yes. That was interesting because the question is, the traits he wants in a coach. And he kind of starts off by saying he wants a leader of men, but he also says, selfishly, I want the offensive minded head coach. But
Yeah.
that clock management kind of felt like a little shot at Matty Eberflus. And you and I being in that building, I mean, we know how it's kind of, the energy was there in training camp, and then it kind of just, tanked a little bit. But with Caleb Williams' involvement, I think he actually said in there he hasn't really been talking to Poles, or he hinted something that he's not very involved. I don't know the exact words, kind of just paraphrasing. Are you shocked by that? Or, I mean, we know it's Poles, quote unquote hire, but are you shocked? I mean, I don't think he has to be in there for every interview, but like, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't feel like they're out exactly on the same page in my eyes.
Well, it doesn't really shock me just because, when it was that end of the year press conference with Ryan Poles, that's what it kind of seemed like it would be.
Yeah.
And even with when Caleb Williams spoke that day, it's like it didn't feel like, or the day previous, that he would be too much involved as much as they would want him to be. And so, when he's like getting that fake text of Ben Johnson, it's like he saw that Ben Johnson was interviewing, and if like Ryan Poles wanted to be transparent about it, like Caleb would know. But it just seems like that's not going to be a part of how they go about their head coach. I still think, and I'm been really strongly about this, when they're determining that next head coach and who's going to be best fit, the first question has to start with Caleb Williams. Like, I get it.
100%.
You want to reestablish the culture and set that, but it is about your quarterback who's going into year 2, sacked way too many times in his rookie season, but you need to get him the best guy that's going to take his game to the next level.
Yep.
And so if you're starting the interview process with anything but that, I almost feel like you're burying the lead, because that's what you need to do right with this next head coach.
Yeah. What's your plan for Caleb Williams? What's your plan for him to take that next step? Because, I mean, we saw CJ Stroud a year ago at this time. If we were doing this podcast, you and I would both say he's right there at the top 5, fringe, going to be a superstar. And he struggled. I mean, he's picked up a little bit in the playoff game. But yeah, how are you going to develop Caleb Williams into year 1 to year 2? What's the plan for the future? What does your offense look like? All those are good questions. What do you think now? And Ben John, I'm guessing Ben Johnson's at the top of your list. I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be correct.
So, the Raiders have kind of emerged as a team on social media that's trendy. A couple of the reporters are kind of hinting that maybe they're in the lead for it, or for Ben Johnson. The Bears, no one can hire him until after the playoffs or until they're eliminated. So I guess what's kind of your thought on the rumor report that Ben Johnson wants to be aligned with the GM, kind of wants his own GM? Does that work in the Raiders' favor? I mean, the Bears kept Ryan Poles as of now. We don't know if he's got an extension or not yet. What's kind of your thought on wanting to align the GM with the head coach? Are the Bears doing it wrong? What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would just make a lot of sense for any candidate to be aligned with whoever their GM is going to be, so you have some job security. Like, if you go into a position where things are unstable, you're not on the same page. Like, what's to say that if the Bears were to have another bad season, which is up in the air, could definitely happen. It's the Chicago Bears here,
100%.
that Ryan Poles, gets canned. Then you bring in a new GM with this, new head coach. You didn't draft that quarterback. Then again, Zach, the cycle continues. That's been happening in Chicago, where one person drafts a quarterback, that head coach is no longer there with the quarterback they draft. You bring in a new guy, you have a different GM that didn't, hire that head coach, and it continues happening. So I think it just makes a lot of sense to have some kind of alignment contractually for the GM, the head coach, to be in line there. But you ask George McCaskey, it doesn't seem like it's that big of an issue.
That was crazy, man.
Yeah.
You were there. I was there in that crowded Midway. And when he's asked about, I mean, I think he said something like, I'm not, I don't think that's how it operates. I don't know. It was kind of weird to me.
Yeah. Like, I guess usually they want the job, the candidate, and it hasn't been an issue before, or again, paraphrasing, but something along those lines. Maybe that's why things haven't gone completely the way you wanted to in the last 2 decades.
Probably a big reason.
However long. But for me, with like thinking Ben Johnson, when you're looking at the Raiders, outside of maybe Tom Brady and his 10% ownership, what is it that is so enticing about that franchise? And if you're Ben Johnson, like you've been with Jared Goff, a guy that has, had stops in LA now or with the Rams at the time, and then obviously now with Detroit, someone who's a
Yep.
veteran, like that presence is not there in the quarterback room as of right now.
Yes.
And if you want like to just have, I guess, a organization that is going to be ready to compete, I would think Ben Johnson would want to do that and have just weapons around her quarterback, just stability. It doesn't. Raiders do not scream as the first team that fits
No.
those boxes. And if you are I'm not going to say picky for Ben Johnson, he wants to be in the right situation. You should want to do that for your first head coaching stint. Like it just doesn't say, hey, you got to go to Las Vegas. You got to
Yeah.
get the Raiders job to do that. So I would just think if you're looking at Chicago versus, Las Vegas, Chicago has more of the things that he would potentially want. But if it is the ownership aspect and, not being aligned with Ryan Poles' contract, if he doesn't get an extension, then I could see some reservation from Ben Johnson, not maybe wanting to be there. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation, but I think it probably will come down to those two teams.
Which, is a big mistake for the Bears then, if that's what it came down to with the ownership situation. It's another one of those things where you see it, I see it, everyone that were in the media room sees it. I mean, you're in there, you hear everyone how we talk, like everyone how writes about it. They just can't figure it out for some reason. Like it just makes no sense to me. And I agree with the Las Vegas thing. Like I think the same thing about Jacksonville. Yeah, they have Trevor Lawrence, but what else do they kind of have? Like you have a GM that, not a lot of people like. The ownership is not very good there. Las Vegas, yeah, you're in Las Vegas. You're in Sin City. Brock Bowers looks like he's going to be a star. Max Crosby's already a star. But outside of that, I mean, the cupboard's pretty bare. Like there's no quarterback, like you said. This quarterback class is not great. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I do think the Tom Brady effect is real, and I think it's something that we really need to pay attention to. So who would be, as we kind of wrap things up, and thanks again for joining me. I know you take time out of your day, and I appreciate it. Give me, 4 to 5 maybe mock finalist list. Like who would be on this list for you, and is there a surprise name on there?
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna start with Ben Johnson being that first finalist, but someone that just some more research I've done on him, seeing what he did with another rookie quarterback this year, I really like the idea of Cliff Kingsbury
Okay.
being a potential finalist for the Bears. And the biggest questions for the Bears to look to get answers for a guy like Cliff is like what ended up happening at the back end of his time in Arizona, and just some of the stuff that you're hearing and reading about with maybe not the best relationship with Kyler Murray, having lack of communication, not having complete control of the locker room. Yes, those are legitimate concerns, but just having some time off, being in USC with Caleb Williams, learning from a guy like Dan Quinn, who had a head coaching job in, previously had to go back to being a DC and then being a head coach. You can learn a lot from those experiences. And I just look at how Jaden Daniels has been playing in his rookie season. Like he took a lot of those attributes that he excelled at when he was in college, brought it to the NFL game for at least this year so that he can have a fast start. And of course, as they kind of develop it, if he's still there, they would have to continue evolutionizing the offense. But that's what you want. And it goes back to what I said earlier. You want somebody that's going to look at the quarterback first, build the system around him, and then you're going to get, the best product out of your young quarterback. So that's why Cliff is really enticing to me. You look at a guy I like Brian Flores, and if you look at this past game against the Rams here, obviously it's a bit of I don't know, a wrinkle that you have to look at, seeing like both times that the Rams played the Minnesota Vikings, they figured it out both times against that type of defense. So, but I still think that if you're looking for a culture setter, somebody that's going to establish some really good things in the locker room and also just be a guy that also can learn from his past mistakes with how it ended in Miami, I think too, like he's come a long way in terms of just what it takes to cultivate a working relationship with a young quarterback and to make it successful. That's what you hope he had learned just being in Minnesota for the time that he has been. And look, they had obviously you have a guy that was on a journeyman type of track with Sam Darnold. You had the rookie and McCarthy. You also had the veteran at one point in Kirk Cousins. So you've had some different types of quarterbacks, and maybe you could take those experiences and apply them to what to do best with Caleb Williams. Um, Another guy that would be one of those finalists for me is Todd Monken from Baltimore, man. And I think too, yes, you have a MVP type quarterback in Lamar Jackson. You have Derrick Henry, but you still got to find ways to best utilize them. And just reading and hearing some of his interviews right when he got to Baltimore, he's really big into establishing an identity. He believes in running the ball and
Yep.
establishing that part of the game to set things up. And he's been in a bunch of different systems before that, taking Georgia back to back national championships. Like, I think that just proves what kind of coach he is. He'll take whatever he's given, get the best out of it. Also has college head coaching experience, and I think you can work with that. And there's been a lot of viral clips of him just cursing it up on the practice field. I don't know how George McCaskey would like that, but I think he can also fit that type of guy that can come in. The players will respect him, but he also get the most out of whoever he has around him in terms of weapons on offense.
Yeah, luckily George doesn't have Twitter, so he's
Not that
not
we
seeing
know
this.
of. Not that we
Not that
know
we
of,
know of.
Zach.
Not that we
Which
know
one's
of.
his burner?
That's true. That is very true. Yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty similar with my list as well. With yours. I think I've talked myself into Mike McCarthy. I just feel like like you said. I mean, they're also kind of rolling out the red carpet. He's an in-person interview today, and I know the rules and all that, but going to Wheeling and the dinners and all that stuff, the private jet. I'm just worried that they think they're done with Ben Johnson or they're out, like they know something that we don't. I don't know how true that could be. But it's still Ben Johnson, still the slam dunk for me. Like that's the hire I'd be the most excited about. Talk myself into a lot of those guys on your list as well. And, with Brian Flores, I put out my tiers and everyone's like, why is he so low on your tiers? And for me, I think he's a hell of a coach. He's a hell of a defensive coach. He's a really good, defensive minded coach, but the stuff with Miami, like how true is it? How does that impact? I would trust the Bears to hopefully do their homework and do some background on that, but we're on the same page with that. Nick, thanks, man, for joining me again today. Where can everyone find you on social media? I know you got a new blog out /website. What are you doing? What are you up to these days, man?
Yeah, like you, just staying on task with all the Bears hires. So just kind of really monitoring that. But you can definitely follow me at my YouTube channel at Nicholas Moreano, and then on Twitter as well at Nicholas Moreano. It's where I'm going to post, everything that I write or those YouTube videos that I'm doing. But yeah, just staying busy, man. And it does help that the Bears are in this process, because if you take a day to step away, like you could miss a lot. So it does help with, being in the position that I am, that there is still stuff going on. Look, Senior Bowl is a couple of weeks away too. It's like everybody, you're probably just catching up or trying to stay up to date with everything.
It's quick, man. The offseason moves quick. With the Bears having targets that are still in the playoffs, this thing's gonna drag on, and then it'll be free agency and draft, and next thing you know, staying out at Hallis Hall in the summer, hoping for a good record, a winning season to cover. But thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. Anytime you want to hop on, let me know, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.